cannot be a coincidence that our school, though so very connected to our community, is, in fact, a box.
Brazenly, beautifully red. Perhaps the architect selected quite deliberately a paradox, a shape that could contain, but would release.
That could confine, but would emancipate. As the ruby hues pulsate, they issue a command.
Enter, inquire, inspire, create, and investigate.
The Red House, as it's affectionately known, has become almost the heart of its local community. Now, it's located in Mill Bay, which is down in the docks in Plymouth. And the brief was a school of the creative arts, something that absolutely put creativity at the centre of all subjects. A conversation that came out of a master planning discussion that we were having with Plymouth College of Art, in which Andrew Burton, the principal, hatched this idea that actually wouldn't it be amazing that there was more of a continuum within the city.
This idea that an art college would create a school in which the approach to learning in all subjects was through making, arose as a response to things that were happening nationally in terms of education policy and also in response to local need.
We didn't really understand quite how wonderfully experimental it was really going to become. Could it be like a gallery, which would make it really exciting? Is it a theatre, in that there's performance going on? Or is it actually just a series of wonderful studio workshop spaces? And so a hybrid of all of those kind of space types came together to create the basis for this school.
I remember the extraordinary moment when Andy very nervously prepared us for the image that he was about to show us. And then this bright red box appeared. And we stared at it for a long time. And nobody said a word. And it just looked right. The restrictions in terms of what we could afford meant that it had to be a box. What Andy and the team created was this highly perforated box, at the centre of which is this huge well of light.
So the building is based on the idea of a superblock, but it's not just a basic superblock, it's a sculpted superblock. Up at high level, we've taken away the odd corner, and then we've coloured that differently. So instead of the chili red, we've used a black anthracite just to express where the building's cut. It's not quite a Barbara Hepworth, but it's along those lines where the extracted forms are then coloured differently. So it takes on a really sculptural quality.
It feels bigger on the inside than it looks to be on the outside by virtue of all of these amazing perspectives we have from these huge picture windows. And if that's the physical dimension, it's also the imaginative dimension, because the two things are inextricable.
The space facilitates that openness, that sense of community. So many people come round and connect to the fact that it doesn't quite feel like a school. That sense of community and the diversity in it is one of the most compelling aspects of why magical things happen here. So if you're a young person who, is connecting to sport, and then you've got Plymouth Raiders working and training in the building and reading to our children or having lunch with our children, there's a different quality to that, there's a different authenticity to that. What we're finding with the open plan space is a sort of series of things of how those spaces provoke learning, not just of the students, but of the staff.
One of the big elements of working in a space like this is that it's completely transparent. Your practice is transparent, there's nowhere to hide.
It kind of shifts the dynamic of the way that staff work with each other. They learn from each other, but really importantly then shift into learning with the young people rather than feeling I've got to be in control of something. And the space is absolutely pivotal in that. It really provokes a necessary and different response.
We absolutely reject the idea of art or creativity as a boundaried subject how is language made? How are ideas made, or how is food made?
How does the cooking in school help with, like, life?
It's taught me how to live and how to just be creative with whatever I make. And that can be with food, but that's also to do with anything else.
This, in fact, is part of their English work, because after half-term, they're going to be looking at Macbeth, the moorland landscape against which it happens, the dark, gloomy castles of the time, and the weather. The point about drawing is it's about learning. It's not about making art. It's very much about learning. So drawing is a process of learning in the same way as writing can be, as a way of recording, inquiring, illustrating. This is essentially looking at literature through drawing.
Each child in our school has an individual learning profile, and you get to learn everything about them. With this cohort, they all love animals and they've all got quite a few pets, so we decided that it would be a good topic to look at and try and link all our learning around their interests. So what are we doing this afternoon?
Well, we're making a pet Olympics.
Why are they going to have a carrot there?
Because they might get hungry. They might get hungry at the end.
The Animal Olympics project allowed us to make our maths and our English really purposeful. They did data handling to see what pets we could invite. They really enjoyed looking at food chains because they were talking about having a pet snake in at the same time as having somebody's rabbit and then somebody's pit bull dog. So they went away, looked at food chains and came back and said, we can't have those on the same day. So then they decided they would have to have separate events.
The purpose of the school in terms of equipping for life is to shift that idea in students' minds of them being consumers to makers.
They know they're experimental, they know they're on the edge. But what it's created is a school that I think all of us would want to send our children to.
It's really clear when you talk to the children, when you walk around the place, there's a real drive and sense of purpose. And it hooks right back into them, that transparency of the space, because you can see it and feel it and hear it and connect to it, taste it all the time.
I think they're on an amazing journey. We're really keen to understand where they're going to take that journey, and I'm not sure they quite know exactly where the journey's leading them to. And in fact, it seems as if the building has enabled that experiment to go much further than we'd imagined.